Hi there guys, my name is Kyle David Smith. I also perform under the name Pay the Man, and this is my debut album, Regulars, track by track. When you start a project, you kind of tell yourself that an album is a possibility. It always starts off when you basically do EPs or singles or just one song. It's just something to sell and something to basically put on your merchandise table. The idea of me doing an album, it was a bit of concern because it's a very cost-effective project. And when you're the sole provider of the money to make something like that, it can be very difficult. Creatively, Regulars was always going to be about, it was always going to have like a running story within each song. I was writing certain songs on the album in different periods of time. They just seemed to run together with a certain theme. I was like thinking about certain moments in my life when I was writing these songs. As I was going on with Pay the Man and the animation and the cartoons and stuff that we were using for social media posts and everything else, and for merchandise as well, it just seemed to be a nice mix to like make a story involving something that I spent a lot of time in, giving it a sort of safe look with the cartoons that have been created by Emma. So with that in mind, I thought that a story behind these songs as well would have worked. It was going to be a lot of work. It was obviously going to be tough, but it just was like a lot. It was so much fun. It was so much fun writing these songs and obviously recording them. But then came the moment where I had to decide whether it was going to be just an acoustic album or if I could try and get a full band in. It was going to be impossible to get actual musicians part of this album. I mean, if there was a possibility, I would have done it, but I had to think of like the cost effectiveness of it. I took a little bit of advice from a musician that I'm fond of, Dustin Kenzu from Thrice. Ironically wearing the same t-shirt. I found out that the first album he did, the drums were done on Logic, and that kind of blew my mind. I didn't realize how good the drums had gotten. I didn't think that was allowed. That kind of gave me peace of mind, and I thought, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can try to write the drums on Logic Pro and then try and bounce them. I asked Todd, who was so supportive on the album and had such patience for me. He said it was totally possible to do this. So I did the best I could with the drums to make it as realistic as possible, and then had to bounce every single mic that basically had a track on it. We tested it out actually. We tested it out on the Busker. The Busker was the first track that was going to be part of the album, but the album was not planned. It was just one track. I wanted to do something. I wanted to try it out. When we tried it out, it just seemed to work, but it was a simple beat. We thought, yeah, we could probably do an album out of this. It was a very interesting experience to do, and then as soon as the drums were done and mixed and everything, it was time to then get the basses and the guitars and the vocals done, and that was very simple. It just all came together, and I was so thankful for Todd's patience because this was something I really, really wanted to do, and I'm now really happy to be holding the CD and an album that I've actually worked hard to make. Regulars. So Regulars, yeah, obviously is the introduction to the entire album, the first track on the album as well. It's quite a short song as well. I originally had written a guitar-based introduction for it. I didn't think it went quite well. It was good to play live, it just didn't work on an album for me. So what I wanted to do was just basically do a palm muted bit to get the right energy out of it. Most of my songs on that album are in a tuning straight D, and I just thought it was really cool to basically use that tuning and then flow straight into the next track after that. Regulars was always going to be just an acoustic song. It originally had a full band sound on it, but I just thought it was really cool to just introduce it as an acoustic with a bit of some electric guitars in it, and it just really worked when it came together. Lyrically, obviously with Regulars, it's when you come into the bar and you basically look at your surroundings, which are very familiar. That's how I felt when I was going into certain pubs and bars that I basically called home. It's essentially, obviously a song what happens when you just go into a bar and you see the usual stuff, and it's very relatable. I didn't want the song to basically have a Piano Man kind of vibe. I kind of went a cynical route and just basically said this is an absolutely boring story, and because it's nothing special. It's nothing special at all, and that's what I was singing about. I was singing about the fact that there's nothing special about this story because everyone's seen it. It's relatable, and the story is boring, and this, it makes me a regular. Therefore, you realise that you've been spending too much time there. Situationship. Situationship is always a song that makes me smile every time I listen to it or play it. I have no recollection how it came about as a song, faffing about with the tuning. It just came about like this riff that started it all off. It was such a very melodic, very positive riff, and it's something I'd never done before, but it just sounded really cool. Everything just came together musically. There's a lot of influences in that track, but lyrically, I didn't know what to do lyrically until a story came right on my lap. The song is basically about 21st century relationships. When I was in my 20s and, relationships and dating and all that, it was just, through meeting people when you go out on a night out. And then when Tinder came along and social media came along, I remember a friend of mine who I used to work with, she told me one of the friends that we had at work as well, they were into each other, and she had stated that they were in a situationship, and I'd never heard that name at all. I'd never heard it, basically. I thought it was a very clever term, and also the most stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And she was stating that a situationship is basically the flirtation period of a relationship. You don't know what it is, you don't know what it's going to turn into, but the actual excitement and flirtations of it makes it a situationship. And I thought it's so weird that they were putting a name on something like that. That's just flirting. That's what it is. That's just flirting. And I thought that's a very good topic to write about. When she was telling me about the situationship, I actually got both ends of the story of what was happening between the two, because they were both friends and they were both flirting with each other and they both wanted to date each other. I won't tell the full story because it's quite, well, I'll tell some bits of it. It was just an absolute sitcom-worthy style scenario. I thought it was so funny. I just started writing about that because it was just funny. It's got nothing to do with me. These are just two friends of mine. I know it sounds really bad, but the ending of that story, he just completely shot himself in the foot. It ends up being one of my most popular and most fun tracks to play. And when we were doing the full band version, because it was always going to be a full band version of it, everything came together on that one. The vocal stuff, it was a proper pop song, and that was really cool. So I'd never done a pop song. I'm pretty sure that my friend's getting sick and tired of listening to it though. Insert Coin. Insert Coin is one of the oldest tracks on the album. The idea of the t-shirt obviously was the fact that I wanted a kid looking at a coin and being perplexed at the effort he's going to put into investing oneself, and obviously put up the coin in the coin slot. The phrase insert coin was a merchandise slogan first, and then the song came after it, because I wanted to write something about it. I thought the idea of an insert coin was like, and then investing in oneself, it just had a nice ring to it. And obviously at that time when I was writing it, I had lost my job. I was struggling to make ends meet in terms of paying my bills and stuff, and was just basically worried for the future. And I thought it was really cool to just like write a song about that. And I'm seeing all these things like my friends having children, people getting married, and that's pretty much how the song came about. Like, I think if I hadn't lost my job, that song would have never been written, because like the sheer depression that came from it kind of sparked and influenced me to write it. I was just like saying like, oh, I need money and I don't have any. But yeah, it's like, it was really cool to just like be very, like I said, again, cynical about it, and just sing about my troubles and put it in a very, very upbeat little song. I think screaming at the end of it, I mean, that pretty much channels my inner fandom for Max Bemis from Say Anything. I'm a big fan of Max Bemis, and he tends to be very poetic with his lyrics, and also very outspoken. He just like screams a lot, like when there's a lot of frustration in it, and I wanted to basically have that kind of influence in this song, and I got to. And there's a lot going on in that song. I would love to get a full band to basically play that with, but obviously I'm doing acoustic stuff. But yeah, it's a fun track, and it turned out really well. So, the Busker. So yeah, this is going to be a short one because I've already done an interview to explain the Busker that you can see on my YouTube channel. It's definitely on there. But what I will say about the Busker is that it's the only song on the album that's co-written. This was co-written by my good friend Jonathan Hopkins, who we used to be in a band together called Caesar's Row. John's, I consider, one of my oldest friends, and obviously a long-time collaborator of music. This riff is very old. The music's very old because we were writing it during our first album, I think back in 2000, I'm going to say 2006, I probably got that incredibly wrong. Yeah, we were like writing some new stuff together, and this was one of the bits of music that came out as a demo. I think we called it The Day After Tomorrow because we were watching the film as we were writing it. It was just such a good collaboration of like two guitars playing. It just showed how like we were just really working well as collaborators of music. We just never did anything with that song. It just wasn't something that Caesar's Row were going to be doing. 6-7 years later, I asked John that I was going to be making Pay the Man full band in certain songs on the album, and I wanted to try it out on a track, which was this was the demo track for the drums and everything. So this was all going to be tested on this song. I called him up saying, is it okay if I use this riff? We never used it, and it's just something I think I can turn into a really good song. He just said, yeah man, just go for it, like just see what you can do with it. I wanted to make sure this song had the justice it deserved. So when we did it in the studio, I just wanted to write about music. I wanted to write about the Busker, basically being in a band or being in a project and just wanting to play. I started writing about my first ever gig in Pencoed, and the thoughts and feelings I was having on playing this for the first time ever. It was my first ever gig, and I remember it so well. And I remember sending that to John before I even decided to release it, before we even decided to make a video out of it. And he gave his approval. He just thought, yeah, it's a wicked track. Yeah, it's really good. And it's nice for that to come full circle. Obviously, I've got a lot of time with John. We, not falling out or anything like that. It's just, it was nice to basically give that Caesar's Row song some new light, and yeah, it turned out okay. Territory. Territory was one of those songs I was kind of worried about. I thought it was going to turn into an album filler. It was definitely the last song that I had written for regulars. I was just playing around with some chord progressions and this, and then as I was writing the song, I was trying to think of the lyrics of what I could actually sing about, and then it came to me about something that happened when I turned 30, and I was going through a bad breakup. I went out with a couple of friends for my 30th. There were places I just didn't want to go to because my ex was basically there, and it was really getting to me at the time. I was trying to keep my mind off it, but obviously there are places you just don't want to see it because obviously it's a bad breakup. You don't want to. There's like that sense of territory where you just basically feel like you shouldn't be coming here when I'm here. And it's a very irrational thought. It was a very angry thought, I'm not going to lie about that. It's a fun little track, and I do enjoy playing it, and I do play slower versions of it live, and obviously it'd be really cool to have a live version of it. And of course the lyrics kind of stick with me because it then becomes a battle in that relationship where you have dirt on other people. You have dirt on that person, and they have dirt on you, and it's become a war of just immature bickering, and it's just, that's pretty much what it was all about. But then the song goes into a very nice flowy kind of tune, and this was kind of resembling how you just like gave up and you're exhausted and you want to just like fade away into the dark or something like that. You're just laying down your battle swords and just like I'm done, I don't want to deal with it. And yet it's so familiar that you just feel so depressed about it that you just don't matter, and you just like want to back off and stuff. And that song was going to be called Territory/Deja Vu, because that kind of thing happens a lot when you've had a couple of drinks and you just feel, oh, I can't be bothered. You just get really upset. But I thought that as a whole was probably better, because it kind of summarizes the anger, the depression, the just sheer exhaustion of it. And yeah, it turned out to be a really cool track that kind of stuck with me. It just works well with the story that I was telling. It really summed up the next song well, because obviously the depression side of it then leads on to the next song. C Straight. C Straight has gone through a lot of transitions over the years. The music was first written when I was just basically messing around with guitars again. That's pretty much, I just like to mess with certain tunings. This tuning, like for all the guitarists out there, is in D, A, E, A, B, E. which is a very stressful tuning to put your guitar through. But when I was writing C straight, it had a lot of different meanings. It was always focused on one problem, which was drinking too much and losing friendships. That's essentially what was the first idea for C straight, was basically a friendship that I cherished that was basically repeating itself over and over again in terms of letting me down and letting us down. It just didn't make sense lyrically. It didn't make sense. So as I was writing along the lines of the story for the pubs and stuff, a lot of it was basically a mixed up jumble of all the previous versions of the song. And when it was written, it kind of made sense with the fact that it didn't make sense, if you get me. C straight is a song about being drunk and having incoherent conversations with yourself. Who hasn't done that when they are drunk? I remember walking home after a big night out. I remember questioning myself, questioning my health and everything like that. Because I was trying to think about it, it didn't make sense. It just was a massive mess of lyrics. And that's pretty much what this is all about. It's an emotional rant from a drunken fool. The character in question is talking about praying to get home safely, also having a great relationship with alcohol. Like some of the lyrics, like, don't you know that what we've got is worth its weight in gold, but it's heavy and cold and harder to hold. It's a very troubling friendship and relationship with alcohol, but yet anyone who's ever been drunk will basically say, like, I love you, mate, absolutely love you, about someone who's drunk but can't really basically say that he's got problems. You can't say that he wants to be positive or anything like that, because nothing makes sense. And that was pretty much what it was. I was so worried about whether or not these lyrics would say, like, Kyle, this makes no sense. He said, yeah, that's the point. It's one of my favourite songs, definitely. I never really had an ending for it until when me and my girlfriend Laura, we were in London, and I was just coming off one of the subway trains. I was just thinking about C straight, and for some unknown reason it just popped into my head to basically make a slower version of the chorus. And I don't know why that's important. It's irrelevant, really, but I just have it stuck in my head that when that ending was written, it was written in my head when I just come off a subway train in London. Don't know why, I don't know how it popped into my head, but I just, for some unknown reason, can't forget that that's how that ending was written. It was written on a subway train in London, and again, I can't tell you why. The Patriot. So yeah, The Patriot was one of those songs that just came out of nowhere when I was coming to write music. Definitely wanted to write another energetic song. I think when I was recording this, it just made sense not to make it into a band thing, make it completely acoustic. And I wanted to go back to songs like Ophelia. I just basically wanted to just do more huge sounds, but with no drums or anything like that. The music that came with it, I just think it was cool to basically replace the rhythm with claps. That was heavily influenced by another Say Anything track called Pink Snot. It's on the last album, Oliver Appropriate. They have this really cool like rhythms, like now obviously I didn't want to copy that, I just did the one, just that one little like rhythm, and just to keep a rhythm going for it. And of course then I brought in more electric guitars and bass, and it obviously sounded great. There was no need for drums or anything like that. It just sounded cool, and it turned into a really, really good song. The best part about it is that choir thing at the end. Todd had that idea. He was getting me to do all these different like variations of the ending chorus. I found out what he was trying to do. It sounded like a choir, and I was just amazed. I was like, praise the Lord. It's like, it was really good. And it was done beautifully. Lyrically, The Patriot is about a certain person that I used to serve in a pub that I worked in, and I kind of resented him a lot because all he ever did was live at his mum's and then came down here for a pint or two or three or four or five and then go right back. Then other people started talking about it, and then he was just basically going to this pub. He had no friends or anything like that. He never spoke to anybody. It turned out that obviously he found safe and security of having that same kind of routine. He didn't want to be anything else. That's pretty much what I wanted to write about, because there's one in every pub. There's always one person who basically finds solace and comfort in doing the same thing over and over again and just coming to the same place over and over again. And in that story as well, the story of the concept, there's the realization of that being a future. So you don't really want to find safety and security in one place if you want to aspire to be better. That's where the story takes a different turn. The person who is seeing all this just doesn't want to stick around anymore and then ends up leaving, which is what opens up the final track of the album. There's hope for you yet. So this is obviously the last track on the album, and where basically everything wraps up, and the character in question is sick to death of the surroundings and wants to leave. There's like a lot of frustration and anger, and I wanted to basically give it some kind of like hopeful vilification at the end of the story. So I wanted to do it in the form of a folk song, very reminiscent of Frank Turner, which I thought was really cool of how that turned out. It made a lot more sense then for lyrically to sing it like a folk song with constant lyrics being thrown at you every single step of the way. And I was worried about basically writing those kind of stuff, but this is what I kind of excelled at when it came to rhyming. What was also nice as well was that I used lyrics from other songs, which again was another Thrice thing that I was inspired by, and put that in the last song. So again, everything was rounded up. So you had like Situationship, you had the Busker, and it was a nice way to end everything up. And obviously some of the lyrics that I'm very, very fond of. I like the idea of like this song being a very happy version of storming out of a place. It is cool. So again, it was a perfect ending, and like I said, I tried so hard to basically make a good ending of this, and I was so proud of when this song was done. The ending of it as well, that has that one little acoustic little riff played, again, a roundup and making it full circle. It's going to happen again the next night or something like that. Or maybe it isn't. That's up for interpretation. The riff that I was playing is a different version of the Regulars riff. Same kind of like rhythm, I suppose, and the same kind of like sound as what Regulars does. If you can listen to them as the same, they're obviously different tunings, and obviously they're not exactly the same song. It's just the rhythm kind of has that accent. That's the word, accent that is resonant in Regulars, and it kind of gives a full circle, which I wanted to add, and it just, yeah, it was a nice little ending for the album, and I was very, very proud of that song, and just proud of the album in general. I couldn't believe that this album was done, and I remember leaving the studio and just was so excited that this was actually done and created, and was just so super proud of myself. So there we go. Guys, thank you so much for watching. My album Regulars is out on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, Deezer, and Bandcamp, where you can also get physical copies as well as merch. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.